This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. Thank you for popping in, folks live, folks who are slowly popping in. Today we're going to be talking about some midterm stuff. Man, Biden has a couple gaffes today, which we could chalk up to his mind that's going, but this is actually something that's kind of on brand for Biden. So I don't know if we can say it's just because he's losing his mind. Randy Reitgard tried to dunk on Ron DeSantis about some history facts, which I did not realize that Ron DeSantis was so astute in historical knowledge. But she was wrong, talking some stuff regarding 1619 Project and slavery and so on. So people tried to say, oh, Ron DeSantis is so wrong. But he's actually not wrong, especially the way that people are trying to dunk on him about. So we talking about that. People are angry about Glen Youngkin keeping some campaign promises. We showed yesterday a little bit of like the walkout that happened yesterday with different students upset because he's saying, hey, if you're a boy, go in the boys' bathroom. If you're a girl, go in the girls' bathroom. And if you recall, Daily Wire broke a story about a boy who sexually assaulted a girl in the bathroom, and a superintendent lied at a meeting and was like, oh, we've never had any sort of incidents. And the father was in the room. His daughter was sexually assaulted. So Glenn, I believe that story probably helped to push Youngkin to his victory, which he has a high approval rating right now. He's doing much better than Biden is. But people are really upset at him, just as people are upset with Ron DeSantis when they had the Don't Say Gay bill with the Parental Rights and Education bill. And of course, in Michigan, we have things like Proposal 3, and it all really points to the left really wants your kids, and they see parents as the opposition to your children. And that's not new. I don't know if enough people have realized it. I have a bit of a story from last night. If you're not following my different posts, I went to a city council meeting and I talked to someone who actually passed out petitions for Prop 3. And it was pretty interesting, but I will go over the story after I finish my intro. But I just want to thank you guys for watching today. Please make sure that you go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, different articles, different videos that we have on the website. Make sure that you guys check out different merch on the store. All that really does help. So if you guys see something cool that you like and you want to purchase, go ahead and do that. Much appreciated. Like the Pro-Choice Men Are Sus shirts, and sus stands for suspect if you're curious. I got the My Money, My Business shirt. Got the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt. The hoodie, the goat hoodie t-shirts. I do have those in different colors. So just check out different stuff that we have on the website. You may be able to find something that you like. Otherwise, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It costs to stream, it costs to run my website, it costs to travel, it costs to use the software that I use. If I do a fancy kind of video and I have different filters from the subscription stuff that I have, it just is a lot. So if you would like to cover and help with that overhead, I know times are tough. I think now we've had 2 consecutive quarters, maybe. I think that's what they said on the news the other day. So we're definitely in a recession. And man, gas jumped 30 cents. And Biden said an obscene lie the other day about gas being an average of $2.99 in 41 states, which it's not an average anywhere of $2.99, I think, in any state. But it was at $3.79, $3.89 or something, but now it's at $4.19 again. So we've reached that $4.99. I think they're trying really hard not to go above that, but unfortunately they spike when there's some kind of hurricane season. But if you can, and if you would like to still donate to blacktnews.com, it's very much appreciated if you do that at the website, blacktnews.com. donate. Also, October is fast approaching, and if you are in the Michigan area, or if you like to travel, and if you like things like Comic Cons, I have a booth at Motor City Comic Con. And you might be saying, why do you have a booth at Motor City Comic Con? It's like, well, don't you know? I write books. So I write a lot of fiction books. My goal was to finish 30 books by my 30th birthday, and I actually did that a couple years ago. I'm 33 years old now. I know people think I'm in my 20s, but I'm not. So I have lots of nonfiction. I have lots of fiction books, and I have a fiction book that's published, and another one that's soon to be. Just keep your eye out on that. So I will be selling my books at Motor City Comic Con. So if you want to come by, say hi, grab an autographed copy if you're in the area. Come to the table. I got my children's book series that you guys can check out. Also got books about vampires and werewolves and a bunch of other stuff. Like this is a picture of me and all my published books right there. So yeah, I've been busy. It's my passion. I love to write. So sometimes when I'm talking about pop culture and as a content creator, I don't understand why Disney does X, Y, and Z. It's because I'm a content creator and I don't understand some of their tactics and how they can hire people to be so cruel to their source material. So it's a passionate subject for me. So anyway, if you just like to order them and you can't come to those things, my stuff is available on Amazon if you just search Christina Elbar. But if you go to blacktnews.com, there's also at the merchandise banner at the top, there's a banner that'll take you to my book website and you can learn more. So just wanted to throw that out there. I haven't announced that in a while, and we are getting close to it. I got to actually order some copies, make sure that I have enough when I have Comic-Con. Also, I want to thank Brand Mission Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, nobody cares. They don't care. I don't care. But I love those guys. It's good pack. They really help candidates. They're doing their best to win seats, and we really do need to win in Michigan. So please check them out. Okie dokie, you guys know that I like to start with something funny. There's a couple things that are going to make us chuckle today. But we'll start with a meme that I intended to show for giggles and go from there. So I already shared this on Facebook, so probably you've already seen it. Babylon Bee. Martha's Vineyard builds Planned Parenthood to combat rising population of minorities. That's some dark humor though, because obviously abortion is a terrible thing. But it is so amazing having conversations with people on this topic, and then they'll flip to like, but black people need it, and that not realizing how dark and obscene and gross and racist that is. Like you do realize what happens in an abortion, right? And they're just like, but the blacks need it, right? And as a matter of fact, there's one video. I think I went over it on the show. Maybe I definitely did a TikTok about it. And there's a video with a man going back and forth with a young lady, and so all of a sudden she's losing. Like, it's a respectful conversation, but she's just losing. She can't like keep up with this guy. He knows too many facts about biology and philosophy and all this other stuff. So she just flips it. She's like, well, what about the black people who need abortions? And so he's like, oh, speaking of black people and abortions, do you know about the founder of Planned Parenthood and eugenics? And he goes that route. But I just thought it was so funny because she was a white woman, and her automatic default when she was losing the debate was to go to race. That's their tactic. They go to race. They try to elevate their so-called victim above, so they'll get those sort of points and be like, I have the virtue, I must win because I have the virtue, and not realizing that they're just blatantly racist. And they say it. The darndest thing is they say it and they mean the darn best about it. I was talking to somebody last night about Prop 3, and I'm like, we can do outreach. We can be successful if we outreach to especially black boomers about this. I'm like, I don't know about liberal white women, because liberal white women have it in their mind that they do certain things. It's like, well, it's for the minorities, so I'm virtuous because I'm fighting for this thing, but I'm really fighting for the other, etc. And I'm just like, they're sick and they're twisted, but they think they're doing the right thing. So there's just a lot more education and breakdown there. Like, black people can tell them like, hey, your kids, there's no parental protections in this show. I'm like, what? So that's a easier audience to reach. But I'm like, I don't know about them liberal white women because there's such a complex there. There's such a complex there. Um, but yeah, Babylon B. That's it's just funny. It's funny. Go Ellie. If you're not aware of the story, I don't know how you can't be. But of course, Ron DeSantis sent a plane of illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, and they got them the heck out of there within 48 hours. So Babylon B is killing it with their headlines. They're pretty funny. They're pretty prophetic a lot of times now, which is kind of creepy. But um, good job on them. Also, I want to share this since we are in like hurricane season and people are preparing for that. This is just FYI. This is circulating around Twitter. This is not a new video from Biden. This is actually from last year, but it's relevant and ridiculous. So here we go.
Let me be clear. If you're in a state where hurricanes often strike, like Florida or the Gulf Coast or into Texas, a vital part of preparing for hurricane season is to get vaccinated now. Everything is more complicated if you're not vaccinated and a hurricane or natural disaster hits.
Yeah, everything is just more complicated. That's what people are thinking about. Are you vaccinated? Are you vaccinated? Speaking of vaccination, so do you guys remember when women were getting vaccines, or not even getting vaccines, but they said they were around people who were vaccinated and that their periods were all wonkadoodle? And I heard people trying to speak about this on social media, and their accounts would get taken down, or their groups would be shut down, or they would get like, I don't know, go on timeout on different platforms, or people were talking about TikTok at first, and then you saw like those videos going away. People were censoring that all over the place. So it eventually turned out, well, we already knew it. But people then eventually started to admit, like, hey, it does affect your periods, but it's not a lot. It's okay. It's not a big deal. But that's not what they were saying at first. They were like, oh, it's in your minds. Like, what are you talking about? It's fine. It's totally safe. And I'm not saying it's not safe. I don't want to get into a big argument about it or my stuff taken down. But people were aware of the fact that it was affecting their periods, and people at least need informed consent, and you could have at least not ignored them. And one article that I read, they're like, well, at least after this study, women can be assured that it's happening. I'm like, women already knew that it was happening. We didn't need your assurance to know for sure that it was actually happening. It was so bizarre. So anyway, there was a study that there's some detection of it in breast milk. So this is from JAMA Network. Detection of messenger RNA COVID-19 vaccines in human breast milk. Vaccination is this is in their beginning part of the document. Vaccination is a cornerstone in fighting COVID-19 pandemic. However, the initial mRNA vaccine clinical trials excluded several vulnerable groups, including young children and lactating individuals. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration deferred the decision to authorize COVID-19 mRNA vaccines for infants younger than 6 months until more data are available because of potential priming of the children's immune responses that may alter their immunity. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends offering the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines to breastfeeding individuals, although the possible passage of vaccine mRNAs in breast milk resulting in infants' exposure at younger than 6 months was not investigated. This study investigated whether the COVID-19 vaccine mRNA can be detected in the expressed breast milk of lactating individuals receiving the vaccination within 6 months after delivery. I just want to note that they're saying lactating individuals and not just women. Breastfeeding mothers, whatever. Results of 11 lactating individuals enrolled trace amounts of BNT162 2b2 and mRNA 1273 COVID-19 mRNA vaccines were detected in 7 samples from 5 different participants at various times up to 45 hours post-vaccination. The mean yield of EVs isolated from EBM was 9.1 particles per milliliter, and the mean particle size was 110 nanometers. I guess that's what that is. The vaccine mRNA appears in higher concentration in the EVs than the whole milk. No vaccine mRNA was detected in the pre-vaccination or post-vaccination EMB samples with suppressed milk beyond 48 hours of collection. Also, no COVID-19 vaccine mRNA was detected in the EBM fat fraction of the EBM cell pellets. So, just wanted to let you know something else that women were concerned about. Yeah. That period thing was like really annoying. I wasn't, I didn't take it, but but early discussions about it, like in my family, when they saw people talking about how it was affecting different people in that sort of way, and men saying that they were taking it and they're feeling stuff in their different areas, are like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. Walk I saw a comment. Someone laughed at the Walkadoodle comment. I didn't realize it was that funny. Yeah. So just want to make people aware. There was certain stuff that people had. It's fair for people to have legitimate questions, and people didn't want to be really honest and answer them. Like if you say yes, it can affect you, but it's only gonna be for 48 hours, and you'll be fine. Your baby will be fine. That'd be one thing. Or if people were like, yes, it does affect your period, but it can affect your period when they were still trying to figure that out. They're like, but it'll be okay. But that's not how they acted at first. They were just acting like people should not have minded. And I don't know, like these were all kind of conspiracy theories for people to have these sort of concerns. And it's funny how they want to pretend like they care about women, and other times when they're like, oh, well, you need abortion, so we need to listen to women, just respect women and their choice, and etc. But it's something like this, they don't really care about informed consent and protecting women and letting them know all the options and having honest conversations with them, because they wanted people to take the vaccine. So just wanted to provide you with that info, because I don't really see mainstream talking about it. I see some people on TikTok. I mean, not TikTok, Twitter talking about it, but just wanted to put that out there. As we talk about the vaccines, still such a thing. I do want to talk about Biden. He did something that was pretty embarrassing today. And someone in the comments already mentioned it. I'll just play it.
And so many of you know so much about this as well, and you're committed. And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here to help make this.
He's talking about Jackie Wolorowski from Indiana, who died in August in a tragic car accident. And they issued a statement when that happened. So, yeah. But before everyone's like, it's his dementia, Biden has done stuff like this for years. There was a story, I remember my dad telling this like multiple times, but there was someone there was someone in the audience. He's like, stand up. And he's like, oh, he's got no legs. So it's just a Biden thing. So I can't blame it on losing the mind. But the White House was asked about it, and this is such a lame response.
Final one. What happened in the Hunger event today? The president appeared to look around the room for an audience member, a member of Congress who passed away last month. He seemed to indicate she might be in the room. What happened there?
So the president was, as you all know, you guys were watching today's event, a very important event on food insecurity. The president was naming the congressional champions on this issue and was acknowledging her incredible work. He had already planned to welcome the Congresswoman's family to the White House on Friday. There will be a bill signing in her honor this coming Friday. So, of course, she was on his mind. She was of top of mind for the president. He very much looks forward to discussing her remarkable legacy of public service with them when he sees her family this coming Friday.
He said, "Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? She must not be here."
No, I totally understand. I just explained she was on top of mind. This wasn't what we were able to witness today, and what the president was able to lift up in this at this conference, at this event, was how her focus on wanting to.
So people make mistakes. Sometimes people make egregious, uncomfortable mistakes, and you just apologize and you move on. Like she could say, well, she did great work, and he wanted to acknowledge that. There are a lot of things on the president's mind, and it's and he made a mistake, and he apologizes to the family. Of course, and remind them, like, we did issue a statement when she passed, and again he apologizes, and leave it at that. Leave it at that. You don't always need the spin. You don't always need to look through your binders like, oh, just sometimes you just own up to what happened and you let it be. And if he can't do that, you're his mouthpiece. Just go ahead and do that. That's just go ahead and do that. There's no need to be like, it's just on his mind. It's so weird. People are human. People make mistakes. But the thing that people started to not like about Biden is that he just seems like a mean old man. And at first they're like, Joe Biden, empathy, 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 empathy. And Afghanistan blew that away. Just how he was, people falling from planes, people being left behind, all that stuff. And people wanted answers. And he's just like angry and striking back at people asking questions, just an ornery old man. And then when he brought up his son who passed away, when other troops had died and other people are thinking about their families, and he's bringing up his son again. And not that pain isn't always there for Joe, but it started to seem like using his son as a political opportunity to gain sympathy points rather than addressing other people and the failures on their part and explain how things are going to be better. Once like that veil was kind of off, that's when things start to really change, and people's perception of Joe Biden radically change, and they could start critiquing him on other things because he was just basically starting to be a failed president at that point. There were other things that was bad, but Afghanistan was a big turning point in all this. By the way, Jen Psaki, she's a commentator for MSNBC now, and she was asked, well, she said, if this election coming up in the midterms is a referendum on Biden, then the Democrats are in trouble. And I'm like, that's a heck of a thing for the former press secretary to say, because she wouldn't say that if she was his mouthpiece. And granted, you have a particular job when you're the press secretary, but it's just funny. It's just funny that she knew she was on a sinking ship, so she got out. So that was probably the most honest thing that she's ever said. But that also lets you know why Biden and other Democrats are like, MAGA extremists, we hate you guys. And they're a threat to democracy because they know that Biden cannot stand on his record. So they have to make it about hating the other guy, because hopefully there's more hatred for Trump and that image of January 6th than Biden and going to the grocery store and seeing nothing on the shelves or stuff so high. Man, we went grocery shopping on Sunday and there was like a pack of chicken. It was near like $20, something that would be like around $9, not too, about more than a year ago. And it's just crazy how high food is, how high gas is. And people in DC take it, aren't really in consideration of how much this is affecting everyday Americans because they're living in their bubble. But again, they could have just apologized and move on instead of doing the thing that they did. Also, I want to show you the guys a snippet of Vice. Apparently, Vice decided to do a video on like sexual predators, like coming back into society, and apparently this is how it ended.
Like, we all out here in this world, and we all got to make it happen, and ain't nothing stopping me. So, like, I'm very hopeful and confident.
After this interview, Ashif sent a picture of his penis to our producer.
Yeah, don't know what they were trying to do there, but wow, way to go, Vice. Before I move on to like the Youngkin story, I want to talk about the Ron DeSantis story. So, because some people were upset about something that he said regarding slavery, and they don't realize that he's correct, or they're wrong about how they're trying to critique him, rather.
1619 Project is a CRT version of history. It's supported by the New York Times. They want to teach our kids that the American Revolution was fought to protect slavery, and that's false. We know why the American Revolution was fought. They wrote pamphlets. We saw them dump tea into the Boston Harbor. We saw them meet in Philadelphia, and we have the records of why they revolted against King George III. And so it was the American Revolution that caused people to question slavery. No one had questioned it before we decided as Americans that we are endowed by our Creator with unalienable rights and that we are all created equal. Then that birthed abolition movements. So you can't teach history that's being used to pursue an ideological agenda. You can't teach that the foundations of our country were somehow evil.
Yeah, so he's correct. If you want to know what our country is founded on, I mean, you could just go read like the Declaration of Independence. Like, it's pretty obvious. But Nicole Hannah Jones and you know, the New York Times, they made the 1619 Project, which, by the way, historians said, hey, this is bunk, this isn't true, but they got Pulitzer Prizes, who cares? Which they got Pulitzer Prizes, I'm sure, so they could have some more credence and legitimacy to push this in school, which people did try, and it's probably in like Michigan schools and stuff too. I wrote a piece about it at blacktnews.com some time ago. But Ron DeSantis, he's like, this stuff is a lie, and he's right. It is a lie, especially how they try to portray a lot of stuff. So he got criticized online for that snippet in the video. So Randy Reitgard, who's the head of like the teachers union, said the American Revolution was about leaving Britain. If America's founders questioned slavery, there would not have been a heinous 3/5 compromise in the U.S. Constitution, which was drafted and enacted after the American Revolution. This is basic history. So to the teachers union president, Randy, who would mask kids and all that garbage, people are pointing out if there was, she said, if America's founders questioned slavery, there would not have been a heinous 3/5 compromise. And so people are pointing out, if they questioned slavery, if there wasn't a question, why would there be a compromise? Why would there be a compromise? Obviously, there are people who were against slavery and there are people who were for slavery. And they needed the 3/5 compromise, which people bring it up all the time, but I don't want to bring up the context of it. But the people who had slaves they didn't want to free them. They didn't want them to vote. They didn't want to have power as like a citizen or something, but they wanted their numbers counted. But that would have given them more power because their populations would be so much higher than the other states. And the other states were like, we're against slavery. Like, that's obviously it didn't want them to have more power anyway. Just like, that's going to give them too much power. We got to come to some kind of compromise. So they came to a compromise. Like, they could have been all like, oh, whatever. It's not a good thing that people were counted as 3/5 as a people. we should have been able to be like, hey, let's get rid of slavery, but not everybody was obviously for it. So saw that tweet, but some people point out that DeSantis was actually correct. So Dan McLaughlin said that DeSantis is right. World's first anti-slavery society was in Philadelphia, 1775. The Constitution banning slavery in Vermont was 1777. Legislative ban on slavery, Pennsylvania, 1780. There was only a need for a compromise because 5 of the 13 states banned slavery between 1780 and 1784. He also said Parliament banned slavery in 1833, half a century after the UK lost the Revolution, 50 years after the bans in Vermont, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, over 40 years after Congress banned in the Northwest Territory, and 30 years after New York and New Jersey banned. Popular abolition movement started here first. He says slavery always had critics among theologians and philosophers, but there was no meaningful abolitionist movement anywhere on earth until Americans created one. And then he gave a link that some people could read. As for DeSantis, he majored in history at Yale, graduated with honors, and spent a year after college as a history teacher. So you may wish to consider that he knows what he's talking about before you reflexively try to dunk on him. Catholic Church, and then someone had said, am I crazy for thinking that the practical abolition of slavery by some church in circa 900 AD should count, and various such civil orders throughout the Middle Ages? He said Catholic Church made many formal statements versus enslavement for the dignity of slaves dating back that far. There were vigorous debates among Islamic scholars too, but the wide disconnect between that and making anti-slavery a real movement. So there's some good stuff in this thread, but yeah, Ron DeSantis, he just because you see someone that says something that you don't like doesn't mean they're wrong, and then they don't know what they're talking about. I actually didn't know that he had majored in history in Yale, so just more impressive every day, Mr. DeSantis. So yeah, again, scholars have talked about how 1619 Project was just absolutely wrong in their assertion that we were founded on slavery, protected, and that our real founding wasn't actually in 1776, but it was in 1619. That's why the 1619 Project, and they're willing to die on that hill, still teaching their stuff and patting themselves on the back. But someone said that they wish DeSantis had an older brother. So DeSantis, I appreciate him fighting to protect proper history in his state, to teach it to kids everywhere. FYI, just so you know, some of that COVID relief money that people got to put in the schools, that the Randy Whiteguard, who was trying to dunk on DeSantis and kept kids out of school basically until they could get more money approved, and even afterwards. Some of that money went into DEI, CRT type of training, FYI. One day I did go through a list, and Michigan was one of the states, in my state, they actually did have some funds there. So they're trying to teach this garbage to your kids. But again, Ron DeSantis, not wrong. The abolition movement, though, is very fascinating. I love history. One of the books that I did write is a historical fiction fantasy. I always like to learn and to look at how we evolved and got to the point where we are able to undo that madness. And I hope a lot of evils that we have today that we're able to undo one day as well. So let's move on. People are very, very angry at Virginia Governor Glen Youngkin, and people are angry at him because he's keeping a campaign promise. But I guess people were mad at him before. People who didn't like him didn't vote for him. So there was this walkout I showed you guys yesterday. I think I still have it queued up in here, of kids doing a walkout because they didn't like some of his policies that he was enforcing. Yeah, so there were big walkouts. Again, I mentioned this. I'm like, if kids cannot be in school, they're probably going to choose to just not be in school. That particular area was very lib anyway, which I guess it's a normally blue state anyway, so it's not hard to find those areas. But yeah, and some kids who maybe wouldn't walk out wouldn't care normally. They see all these other kids going out, and there's an element of social pressure to it. So take it for whatever it's worth. Kids do dumb stuff anyway. Parents are the ones who go out and vote with good reason. So they're upset because Youngkin believes what most people probably believe, that if you are a boy, you should use the boy facilities in the bathroom, and if you're a girl, you should use the girl facilities in the bathroom. And also they're upset because if you're a child name is Carla or something, and she decides she wants to go to school, her name is, like, I decide I'm Carlos, that they can't just be like, oh yeah, let's change everything. Like, no, you have to go by what's legal and go from there. You can't just change the whole gender plan and pretend like the legal name isn't that, and that and X out the parents or like all that. You can't do that stuff behind the parents' back. And people were mad. Ron DeSantis had the parental rights and education bill where you can't decide to anything pertaining to the child's mental health. You cannot withhold that information. You have to alert the parent. And then they said you can't teach sexual identity, gender identity, or things about sexual orientation. They didn't say just same sex. They just said sexual orientation in grades K through 3, and in older grades if it's deemed in an inappropriate manner. So it's very, to me, the bill could have gone farther. But it was a bill that, even if Democrats, when they looked at it and they just asked them what was on the bill, they're like, yeah, we support this. But the media and the world just went crazy. And it doesn't matter because Ron DeSantis is going to get reelected easily, but everyone else had a heyday, and people were having a heyday with Glen Youngkin, which there was a need for this. There was an incident in Long County, which the Daily Wire broke this story. You can read about their site. I wrote about it on blacktnews.com. But there was a parent who went to a school board meeting, which there are a lot of people at the school board meeting, and he went there because his daughter was sexually assaulted by a boy in a skirt in a girl's bathroom. And the superintendent was like, we're not aware of any incidents on this, which that wasn't true because there were emails with that incident. He was well aware of it. He just either misspoke or covered it up at the meeting. And by the way, that man, he got testy, and he ended up getting carried out and arrested. And that there was a story about him getting arrested without like all the context about what was there and stuff. The Daily Wire actually really broke that. And in the letter from the National School Board Association that they sent to the DOJ in the White House or whatever to be like, hey, can you use the Patriot Act on these people who are coming to school board meetings? One of the examples that they used to say, hey, it's dangerous, was his father. Like, he was one of their little references. So that's the world we're living in. That's the world we're living in. And it's really, really, really bizarre. It's really, really bizarre how there's all these activists that are so gung-ho on getting your kids. I've talked about this a lot. The Michigan Democrat Party had like a post. And when I first saw it, I'm like, gosh, is this real? And then I went to their page. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real. But it said, where did these parents get the idea that they get to have a say in how the children are educated? That the client is a society, not the parent. The society decides what the children learn. I'm like, who is the society? And why isn't the society the parents? There's really bizarre, weird stuff going on. But that's what the Democrats are pushing. And I know it's not all teachers. I had some really good teachers. I had some teachers I didn't like, don't get me wrong, when I grew up. But I had good teachers in public schools, though. I will fight tooth and nail. I don't like public schools. I would never send my kid to one. But but I did have good teachers. I did have some good experiences. And I know there's still good teachers out there who don't like all this madness. But unfortunately, there are a lot of activists who blatantly put stuff on TikTok and like, this is how you can bypass the they don't say gay bill, and will just blurt out like how they can still incorporate their pronouns and all that other kind of stuff. And it's, why don't people understand that there's like a line that you should not cross? Here's the thing about parental rights, I guess these people feel entitled to other people's kids, but you didn't raise them, you didn't birth them, you don't soothe them. I mean, maybe you do sometimes, but like, according to like a lifetime, you may know them for a couple months. Like this, the parents have known them throughout the years. But most importantly, if that child gets sick, is a teacher going to pay for their medical bills? Is that what the teachers do? No. Oh, okay. If something happens and that child dies, is that teacher going to bury that child? Oh no, the teacher's not going to do that. It's going to be the parent who does that, who buries their child, who mourns them. You're not the parent. You don't have that relationship. You may have a relationship, but they're not your responsibility. They're not your responsibility. And you've been deferred some responsibilities from the parent. They entrust you when they take them to school. And if you break that trust, you've violated something that should be sacred. But obviously there's no respect there for a lot of teachers today, for some reason. And the reason is that they just don't respect the parents. They think, well, they're not teaching them this, so I need to teach them this. We talked about when Peppa Pig, the kid TV show, the kid cartoon, it's a British cartoon, very simplistic art, I'm just like, people watch this, but it's really big in America. Kids were even starting to develop British accents watching it. My niece and my nephew, I think they pretty much grew out of Peppa Pig, but they did watch it for a time. I actually bought like a Peppa Pig doll for them. But there was a petition to put a gay couple on Peppa Pig. And so they put in some lesbian pandas or something. And the petition that said, hey, we want you to do this, we're like, these children are malleable. You have to do this because they're yet a young and they're malleable. And I'm like, thank you for admitting what I've just been saying the whole time, because other people will say like, these children, they're more intelligent than you give them credit for. They understand. They're not going to be confused. No, it's not all that. It's just, you tell a child something, they will try to tend to just believe you. They're very, very malleable. So you just want to be able to warp their minds into whatever ideology that you believe, and you want, especially to do that like when the parents are too busy with life and they're in front of a TV, or they're too busy with life working or whatever, so they drop them off at school. So you have that 8-hour shift or 7 hours, however long it is in school, to mold that child into who you think that they should be. And in some cases, people will supersede the parent so much that they'll try to get their parental rights revoked. We've seen that. I talked about Ms. Martinez. She's from California. Gender people got into her daughter's head, and they're like, even though I think her mother's claim that she was like buying her whatever clothes and stuff that she wanted, they're like, it's not going to be enough. You better get your custody yourself. So the mother lost custody, and the long story short, she wasn't happy living her life as a boy. She ended up stepping in front of a train. And then there was a woman who was a radical feminist Democrat in Chicago. Actually, well, I know it was in Illinois. I don't know if it was Chicago. It might have been Chicago, but she lost custody of her child. In the video I did about Prop 3, I mentioned both these stories. And there's more than that. But there are people who do not believe that you should have custody of your children if you don't espouse their particular extreme ideologies. Something that we would think is just unthinkable to talk about like a decade ago. Not even a decade ago. So years ago. Just a couple. But that's where we are. And politically, there's no, like, as far as polling and other stuff like that, there's no real big advantage for them going this hard. But I think if they can eke out certain things legally, there's it's worth the pain they might receive losing maybe a seat or two. Like, maybe they have to deal with a Glen Youngkin today. That doesn't mean that in the long run they won't pass something like the Equality Act and pass Prop 3 in Michigan and be able to really dig their heels in, attack people who believe certain things, people who have a traditional role of families and gender and sex. And you don't even have to be religious, but they particularly want to go after religious people because they know what they believe, what they stand for, and they're against it. They really are coming for your kids. It's all about control. Last night I went to a city council meeting in Pontiac, and someone on Facebook was like, "Oh, this story didn't happen." I'm like, I ended up blocking them, but there's the city council, some of them anyway, from the picture I took. I was there last night, and I wanted to speak about Prop 3. So I'm just like, I'm going to go to my city council. I'm going to talk because I know people don't know about this. At least they don't know what it really is. So it went entirely too long. So I was like, oh, I don't think it will take long, because one time I had a conversation with someone who was like the chair of the Oakland County, Jim Tino, and he said, if your meeting is more than an hour, you're not running a good meeting. And I'm like, okay. So I'm just thinking, like, maybe they have that same kind of like ideology. And I'm just like, so 3 hours later, they're still discussing different things that are on like the main agenda, and they haven't even gotten to open discussion, open comment. So at that time I had to use the bathroom. So I got up to go to the bathroom, and so one of the councilwoman Rutherford was at the bathroom same time I was. And so she was like, what did you want to talk about? And I said, I wanted to talk about Proposal 3. And she's like, we'll probably be here till 11. So I'll put you on the schedule, tell them to put you on the schedule as a featured speaker next week. Now, I don't know if she actually looks me up or that they'll actually do that, but I took her word for it at the time. And I was like, okay. Because at that point I had to pick up my sister, and I just did not expect to be there that long. I was willing to do it, but once she gave me that out, I was like, okay, I will, if this will give me 10 minutes to talk versus 2 minutes to talk, I'm willing to do that. So as I was leaving, there was a woman in her 60s sitting down, and she's like, you really wanted to, like, out in the hallway, she's like, you really wanted to talk tonight, didn't you? I said, yeah. And she's like, well, what's on your mind, baby? What do you want to talk about? So I said, I wanted to talk about Prop 3 because I'm really concerned. Like, I know they say that it's about abortion, but it's really a bill that would open people up to abuse. And so she's like, well, I went door to door passing out the petition. She's like, what's wrong with the bill? And so I said, well, it says it gives the right for an individual to have an abortion and sterilization, but it doesn't define an individual as an adult. And there's nothing in the bill that has anything about parental rights. And so she was like, well, what's it say? She's like, because I haven't got it. I haven't got it yet. They haven't released what's going to be on the petition. I'm like, which, by the way, on one website that I looked to for references and stuff, it had the wording for what's going to be on the ballot. If that's correct, what's going to be on the ballot is going to be super vague compared to all the stuff that's actually in it. And which I don't expect everybody to read, probably to read like a page worth of stuff anyway. But if all that's on it is what's on the ballot and people don't know more about it, I think we're screwed, honestly. So there's a big education gap we got to work toward prior to people getting that ballot and seeing it. So I'm like, well, I've read the petition, and she's like, well, pull it up for me. I'm like from the actual like signatures and stuff. So I pulled it up, and she's like, I ain't got my glasses on. You got to read it for me. So I start reading the whole thing to her out loud. And so when I finish it, she's just like sitting there in awe. And she's like, it's really not in there. Wow. She's like, I agree with you. and she had passed out the ballot herself for people to sign it. And I don't know if she didn't say if she had read read it or didn't read it, because the same thing I read was the same thing that people signed. Um, so it's not like she didn't have access to read what I just read, but even if you read it, you may not understand what will happen if you do actually sign it. So she agreed with me that that was wrong. So she did ask like a couple other questions about abortion and so on, and I didn't try to get like too deep into it. I had more kind of I was honest about my position, but I didn't take all the routes and routes I could go to the full on I'm for a ban. Like I that wasn't going to be complimentary to our time and my objective. And she agreed with me that the actual proposal was bad. So I was just like, well, can you please, just let people know? And she's like, I want you to come back next week and talk about this. So one way or another, I will be back next week to talk about it. I don't know if if I'm gonna be a featured speaker or if I'll just be there just speaking, waiting for public comment to begin. But that was too long. I'm like, this is like a long church service, and we had no music, we have no song service. Nothing. It was just too long of a meeting. But by the way, if those are good spots to go to, because a lot of people who go to those meetings are concerned citizens who will vote. Like the average person who doesn't care about community stuff doesn't go to those things. People who are in tune with that stuff go to those sort of things. So yes, go to city council meetings and talk to people. You can still go to school board meetings or whatever is on the schedule. And so they have one every week. So there's going to be a few until election time. So go ahead and go to these things and talk to people and make public comment and let people know how you feel. So I thought it was a great story to share, just to let people know. And she's a Democrat. I didn't tell her I wasn't a Democrat. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. I didn't mention anything about Gretchen Whitmer and Dana Nessel supporting it, and so don't vote for them. I didn't bother going down that rabbit hole. I just at least wanted her to know what was at stake there. Because even though she believes in a woman's right to choose, she still's like a mother. She's like, a parent should be there. A parent should know. And then like, it also opens up the door for gender affirming stuff. And she was like, worked in like the medical field. So she understood that as soon as I said sterilization. So I didn't even need to like break down all that either. So she's like in the particular age demographic that I'm 100% sure will vote Democrat generally, but would not like this bill. And then a lot of people who got up to speak, but it was regarding like city business. The people were in the room like, I give honor to God, who's the head of my life. Like there was like 3-4 people who started their comments that way. So I'm like, these people are very religious. I don't know what they do in their everyday lives, but they're a bit religious, and they just would not go along with this stuff. So people are very protective of their children. Black people are very, like everyone is, but they're like, don't touch my child. Don't talk to my child that way. There's just that attitude, that aggression, like for that mama bear, that papa bear attitude. And a lot of stuff that the Democrats are pushing, people won't like. So if we just would talk about that and that get them beyond the media spin and actually say, hey, this is what's going on in real life. This is what that's like the parental rights and education bill. This is what the bill actually says. Read it, look at it. And most people are like, oh, that's actually very reasonable. It's only like these super crazy leftist people. And a lot of them are, earlier I said liberal white women. I mean, there's liberal men or whatever, but a lot of them are just like extreme folks on that particular. And today, which I got to do a TikTok reply, there's a video that I did on TikTok some time ago when Baymax TV show decided to have an episode about him in periods or something. He was getting pads for somebody. So he went to the store, and he's a healthcare robot. But I think Baymax is like a PG show. So it's still like the content I think is a little older than it needed to be. But the thing that mostly I was complaining about was when he went to the pad section, there's all these people who had all these suggestions, and there's someone who's masculine presenting who would look like a male probably, but they have a transgender shirt on. So I think this person is obviously supposed to be a female who has transitioned, who is considers himself a man but has a period. But they also say, I always use these. So it was a trans man, a biological woman. And so in the video, I said, I always ask people who are upset about this controversy, ask them two questions. I said, do you believe that men can have periods? And most of the people who were pushing back against me believe men can have periods. So I'm like, okay, you guys are far up your butts in the ideology. And the second thing is that I would ask them is if it's because they're saying, oh, the conservatives are freaking out over this. It's not a big deal. I'm like, if it's not a big deal, can we just take it out? And then they say, no, we can't take it out because we need the representation. I'm like, oh, so it clearly matters to you. So don't pretend like it doesn't matter because it obviously matters to you. And I said, why does it matter to us? Because this person will never be a man. This person will never be a man. And Disney's trying to push the idea that this person is a man. And we noticed the dastardly plan. Don't pretend like we did. Don't get mad because we noticed your plan. And so some kids, I did it some time ago, so a couple months ago, and some kids who are like, I don't know, 18, 17, he, they, slash them, pronoun brigade, started sharing the video, commenting on it, doing replies and all this other kind of stuff. And so someone was like, and in a video related to that, they said, well, we need the representation because, you know, our rights are in danger and it's good that these big companies are on our side. And I said, what rights do you think you don't have that everyone else doesn't have? So, of course, I'm thinking about freedom of speech, gun rights, all those things. And I know you're not going to say something like that, but that in your mind, we're talking about rights. Aren't you thinking about like property rights, stuff like that? So they're like, well, their state's trying to ban trans surgeries and gender affirming surgeries and stuff, which there are states trying to go after gender affirming surgeries, but that's for minors. Like, hey, let's not give 13, 12-year-olds puberty blockers. So your son doesn't one day regret the fact that he has a micro penis, like, and isn't able to feel like sexual pleasure. So yeah, let's not do that. Let's not give 16, 17-year-olds, you know, gender affirming hysterectomies or something like that. Let's not chop off healthy breasts of 15-year-olds. Let's not do that. So I'm going to reply probably as soon as I'm done with this, but I'm like, these people think those are rights? Like, I'm concerned about my free speech and other stuff like that, and they're concerned about, like, I can't chop off my titties at 15. That's bonkers to me. That's bonkers to me. But the most important thing I'm going to note is if gender is a construct and all that matters is your identity, why do you need the gender affirming surgery prior to being 18? I mean, I wouldn't do it or recommend that people do it at 18 or whatever either. I still think there's such a social contagion associated with it. I would recommend that most people try to not cope in that way, but just kind of live. That's a terrible thing. I'm not alleging that gender dysphoria isn't a real thing, but there are people who misdiagnose with that and then will do irreparable damage to themselves. So I think it's something that people need to gatekeep, not plaster everywhere. Like, yeah, we're trans, we're proud, yeah. Like it's some kind of big social club that the more the merrier. That should not be how people operate. We're talking about like a genuine mental condition. I know that's not, people don't want to put it like that, but we are talking about an actual tragedy. It would be tragic if someone felt like they were born in the wrong body all the time. That's not a good thing. And if there's even an element of social contagion, which there is, we need to get that under control, not encourage more people to jump on the bandwagon. And Disney being like, yeah, men can have periods, or my governor being like, people with periods, and that's not how we should operate. It's not how we should operate in the least bit. So I'm sorry. I don't. And there's these videos on TikTok of girls with their breasts newly cut off. There's videos of doctors like doing videos, like, oh, if you miss your tits, it'll go away, and and really trying to get these clients of these really vulnerable, psychologically disturbed children, so they can get their money. There was a hospital in Tennessee that the Daily Wire broke the news about. We covered it last week, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's big money makers for the hospital. That's what it's about. That's what it's about." And I'm not saying that there aren't people who are like involved in the ideology who really believe that, but there is a lot of big bucks involved. There just is. There just is. So there's a lot of vulnerable people out there, and it's terrible that there could be these vulnerable kids who collectively talk with all these other vulnerable kids, and especially women who share each other's pain. And that's really how the contagion spreads. I mean, there's men who get wrapped up in this, but it's a really big epidemic, I believe, among young women. And it's tragic if there's some kind of activist or some kind of teacher who will affirm that stuff instead of getting to the root of why they feel that they don't want to be a girl or whatever, and then they hide stuff from parents, or they want to get the parents away, get them away, take away their custody, or all kinds of crazy stuff that we've seen. Again, you're breaking a sacred barrier, a line that you should not cross, of parent and child. Now, there are parents who are wackadoodle, who believe in all this stuff and will go along with this stuff, but there are also parents who believe that they're doing what's best, and those people believe they're doing what's best too. But some of them are, because of the culture, they're just emotionally blackmailed. Chloe Cole talks a lot about, she got on Lupron at 15. That's the same drug they give prisoners to sterilize them in like prison and stuff. They give that to kids for the puberty blockers. She was on that at 13. She chopped off her breast at 15, and she said they told her parents, "Hey, would you rather have a live son or a dead daughter?" Which I've seen that, I've heard that repeated time and time again. That's their talking point. Like, if these kids will kill themselves if you don't affirm this stuff. So they do this emotional blackmail. So yes, there will be consent, but it's like under duress. And then what's left? Like I saw a Reddit thread. There's people who detransitioners who talk all the time on Reddit, and there was someone who said every time they open their mouth, they just hate themselves, and they've transformed themselves into a monster, and they're so suicidal, and it's so awful. But this is stuff people want to push. This is stuff Biden's pushing, his assistant health secretary, white, like everybody in authority, these Democrats. And it's freaking weird. But that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out my content on my website. Please check out different videos. Please share that video that I have pinned on my Facebook and on my Twitter page at True Black Tea. And on Twitter, I also have it on my True Black Tea page on TikTok. So people asked if I had it on other social media platforms. I put it on my personal Instagram page and put on my Black Tea one yet. If you see it, share it. I don't mind if you repost it places, especially if you're going to somehow acquire more views. That's fine. I want more people to know. I'd rather have the message be spread than have like immediate credit. I just want people to know and be informed. So please make sure that you share that. Go to blacktnews.com. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com. It costs to stream, it costs to run my website, it costs to travel, it costs the software I use is expensive. Like, there's just a lot of costs. So if you'd like to help with that overhead, I would very much appreciate that. So you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and also look at different merchandise that we have. You might find something that you like, and you can get something and I can get something, and we can both get something out of it, like the Cool Goat hoodies. And we do have them in t-shirts in different colors as well. The Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racist stuff on the back. And there's also the I voted for President Trump, and all I got was historic peace deals, border security, ISIS destroyed, energy independence, and all that other kind of good stuff. So go ahead and check that stuff out at blacktnews.com. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.